Hey, Dennis here again. Welcome to another chapter in my adventures in treasure hunting. And I have some interesting memories to share with you in this episode. I spoke to you last time about my very dear friend and mentor, Jerry Wagner. And in the early days of my adventures hunting for Indian relics and artifacts, I spent a lot of time with him, as did my wife, Kathy. Jerry's wife, Marilyn, although she seemed to be somewhat interested in the artifacts and the history, there was always some animosity between her and Jerry, and I don't recall her ever going on any of the little expeditions that we took. And I remember Jerry telling me about a place called the Mankato Earthworks, which had been an Indian fortification in Mankato, the Mankato, Michigan area, just north of Oscoda, and that he had been there once and would like to go back there, and asked if I and Kathy would join him. And of course, I jumped at the prospect. Kathy did go too. I don't remember really how she actually felt about going to the Mankato Earthworks. It was definitely a long haul on foot to get back to them. But in preparation for going there, at that time, video cameras were not so commonplace as they are now, and portable video units certainly were still quite heavy pieces of equipment. But I wanted to take a video camera with us on our trip into the Mankato Earthworks. So in Oscoda was a store called Chi-Town Records, and it was run by a very dear lady, Mary Shackleton. And I got to know Mary really, really well, because every time a new Elton John record was released, or one of his Rocket Records stars released something, I was always in there to get the latest releases. But she also rented video equipment, and so I rented from her the equipment I would need for the weekend, even though we were probably only going to be out there Saturday afternoon and maybe part of the evening. The portable video units at that time were two parts: the camera, which in itself probably weighed 2 or 3 pounds, and then the recorder unit itself, which you carried on a strap on your shoulder, and that was a good 5 pounds. And if you were going any distance, it got to be pretty heavy. And Kathy and I picked that up from Chi-Town, and then headed out to Jerry's to pick him up. And I believe we took my truck out to where we would park out in the woods, and so we could go in to hike into the earthworks. To buy a video unit back then, like the one that I rented, was quite expensive, and I certainly didn't have the funds to replace this one if anything happened to it on our expedition. But Kathy and I switched off carrying it because, as I said, it got really heavy. And I remember one part of the trip, walking into the area of the earthworks was through a swampy area, and she and I both almost fell a couple times, and I couldn't bear to think of how many hours I'd have to work to pay for that unit. But we trudged our way on in, and actually we did a pretty awesome video of that site with Jerry narrating it. Unfortunately, that was ruined or destroyed, from what I have been told, during Kathy's and my divorce. I often suspect that she still has many of the videos and just doesn't wish to share them with me, even though they're more interest to me than they would be to her. But anyways, as we walked back in there, we were on constant lookout for the small timber rattlers that are so common up in the dry pine woodlands of northeast Michigan, and we saw a few. But when we got to the earthworks, I was, to be honest, a little bit disappointed, because it was large in area that it covered, but it was actually only about 3 feet tall, and it was piled up earth. And as I said, about 3 feet tall, and I remember there being several breaks in the mounded up earth where there were probably entrances, and I imagine on the top of the piled up dirt there were probably wooden posts. It was probably a palisaded fort that was open on one side to, I forget the name of the river that's there, but I think it's the Pine River. Not 100% sure of that. But yeah, you were limited in what we could really do there. I mean, I saw pottery and stuff laying there, but you couldn't pick it up because it was a site that was being watched by the state, and even though we didn't see anybody there, if somebody saw us taking artifacts from there, we'd have been in a lot of trouble. So I resisted the urge there and just took in the beautiful, beautiful scenery. Oh my God, that was 1989. Hard to believe it was that long ago now, but it certainly was. And we were able to return that camera to Chi-Town Records undamaged, and actually we had rented it a number of times prior to that, and a number of times afterwards, again to do videos of us out in the field doing different things. And one day or evening, it was during the summer. Again, it was probably 1989, 1990, right in that era. Jerry took us to a site which I later named the Old Benetton Creek site. And he had told us, as he took us through, there was a wonderful wooded area that in Oscoda that was on 3 levels, and each level marked a different water level in the past. And he took us in to tour the area one evening. It was very heavily cloudy that evening, and extremely humid, as I remember. And we had the camera that night or evening, and as Jerry showed us through there, he was telling us how few artifacts were found there, but there were some significant finds there, but not very many. Well, that changed because Kathy and I made a lot of really quite incredible finds there. But we had an umbrella with us that night, and as we were walking through the woods, it's beautiful green and such a pungent aroma of the woods, and there was thunder off to the west. A storm was coming in. Didn't dissuade us though from continuing our tour of the Old Benetton Creek site. And soon the rain came pounding down, and Kathy and I were under the umbrella as I continued to do video of Jerry taking us through the area there. Oddly, Old Benetton Creek is in an area where it was surrounded on all sides but one by housing developments, and it bounds on Benetton Creek. And it was that same year, in November actually of that year, that Kathy and I began to take walks on the trails. There were trails all through the area because people used it for walking and for dirt bikes and what have you. And actually, I think it was on Thanksgiving of this particular year, she and I took a walk down one of the trails, not very far from my mom and dad's house where we were living at the time. And in the trail, we saw a rounded rock that was partially exposed from dirt bike traffic through there. And I just got the feeling that I should flip it over. So I dug down around it and I flipped it over, and what it actually was a large nutting stone or grinding stone. And I was so excited because I remember that was the first significant artifact that I'd ever found. And so we got a shovel and we started digging there, and we uncovered a cache of material of stone artifacts that were buried there in ancient times, 500 to 1400 years ago, because it was late woodland, and in the artifacts were some beautiful green stone choppers and other tools, great big a pestle, and it was just a remarkable find. And that night, yeah, it was on Thanksgiving that year. That night, we got a deep freeze, and it was cold that day when Kathy and I went out there. But I went back the next day, and the ground was frozen hard enough overnight that couldn't dig, and it just got colder and snowed shortly thereafter. So we couldn't get back there until the spring. And I remember that winter. Oh my God, that whole winter I was like a child waiting for Christmas to come, because I knew there had to be more there. And boy, there was a cornucopia. But I'll tell you more about that in the next adventures in treasure hunting, because there are some amazing things there that I'm anxious to share with you. Thanks for taking a listen. Good night.